Resident Evil 9 is full of unanswered questions. What are the true origins of Xeno? How far does the reach of the connections actually go? Who did Leon actually get married to? Everything is left very vague, perhaps on purpose. But one of the weirdest occurrences in this game is the scene where Grace is clearly bitten by a zombie and never shows any sign of infection. Spencer already said Grace was just a normal child, but was he lying? I did some research to find the answer to some of these questions, and what I found completely changes how we should look at Grace. So let's get right into it. So let's take a look at all the evidence we have about Grace's immunity. First of all, she obviously gets bit by a T-virus infected zombie at the beginning of the game. Throughout the course of the story, she should have begun to show signs of infection, such as deteriorating mental and physical health, itching, and vomiting as detailed in files throughout the series. However, over the course of the 2 days that the game takes place, she exhibits zero signs of that, which obviously led to a what the hell moment for a lot of fans. It can't be a case of bad writing, because the last time a what the hell moment occurred like this, there were secret narratives at play. Think back to RE8 when Ethan Winters was able to attach severed limbs of his body back together. At the time, everybody didn't know what to think of it, until it was eventually revealed that Ethan was actually just made up of mold the entire time. I think the same exact thing could be happening with Grace, especially when you take this into account. Many people reference Grace's zombie bite at the beginning of the game, but there were actually a total of 3 times that she should have been infected with the T-virus. The second time being when she's exploring the basement below the care center. She falls into a pool of T-virus infected blood and even says that she gets some in her mouth.
Oh, I got in my mouth.
That should have been a direct infection, but again, no symptoms were shown. But the third time should have been even worse. Right at the end of the game when Elpis was released, and Grace cures Leon of Raccoon City Syndrome, Victor stabs Grace with his mutated tentacle arm, which should have caused her to start violently convulsing on the floor. If you recall, Victor is actually a Nemesis-type BOW. He infected himself with the newly modified Nemesis Gamma parasite. The last time we saw somebody get stabbed by a Nemesis-type BOW was in RE3 Remake, when the Nemesis Tyrant stabs Jill with his tentacle arm, leaving her violently convulsing on the floor, foaming at the mouth, and succumbing to the T-virus infection instantly. While the effects may have been stronger for Jill because Nemesis is a tyrant fused with the parasite, and Victor is just a normal human, it still makes you wonder why Grace wasn't affected by this whatsoever. Fans tried to tie her immunity to a drug that was administered to her in the early stages of the game, so I'm gonna clear up this misconception. When Grace arrives at the Renwood Hotel, she's bitten by the zombie and then kidnapped by Victor, who then begins running tests on her at the Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center. A file left on the table shows the progress notes of the experiment, with one line reading that at 10:11 p.m. she was administered something known as Dexafil. Some people came to the conclusion that this was the reason she didn't exhibit any symptoms for the rest of the game. They believed it to be some sort of cure for the T-virus, but this isn't true. It's referring to a drug called dexamethasone, which has a brand name called Dexafil. It's used to treat multiple symptoms such as inflammation, allergies, and asthma, so it's not actually a cure. And the reason that it's spelled differently inside the game is because of a translation error. When you take the Japanese text from the file and translate it yourself, it actually comes out to the correct spelling. So this explanation doesn't hold up. But it still begs the question, is Grace actually normal like Spencer said during the video interview, or was he lying? Was she actually part of something greater? I've boiled this down to 3 possible theories, and it's all pretty eye-opening. The first theory worth looking at is the possibility that Grace has natural immunity. Believe it or not, natural immunity does actually exist in Resident Evil. If we look at Wesker's Report 2, which is a journal that provides a detailed account of the early T-virus research from the Arklay laboratory, we get some answers on natural immunity. It states, it was impossible to get a 100% infection ratio. Within people, there is a subtle difference that the virus couldn't totally overtake. It seems compatibility was also a major factor. About 10% of the people who were infected with the zombie virus didn't get infected, and this was something that no matter how hard we researched, we couldn't overcome. While Wesker and his associates tried to manufacture a new strain of the T-virus that could get it closer to a 100% infection ratio, they were never able to achieve that. It's also worth noting that a large number of people with natural immunity are still what are called asymptomatic carriers, meaning that even though they don't turn themselves, they still risk infecting others through fluid transfer or other means. meaning after the events of RE9, Grace would have to be treated so that she doesn't infect any others if she is an asymptomatic carrier. So, although rare, it's completely possible that Grace just has this natural immunity to the T-virus, which caused Victor and the others to think that she was this special child, when in actuality she was just a normal girl. Theory number 2 is Grace was given a dose of Elpis or some other vaccine before she was adopted by Alyssa Ashcroft. Spencer referred to Grace as his hope for the world, and if he truly had a change of heart towards the end of his life and fell in love with Grace as if she was his own daughter, then it's likely he was aware of the world that she was going into. He experienced it from the inside. The brutal human experimentation, the endless amount of bioterrorist groups who were just looking to wreak havoc across the world, and the scale of the Raccoon City outbreak that ended with wiping the entire city off the map. Spencer knew just how evil the world could be, including himself. So knowing he was on the verge of death, it's possible he gave Grace a secret vial of Elpis or some other vaccine to send her into a world full of corruption being as safely guarded as possible. It's worth mentioning we don't entirely know how Elpis works yet. We do know that it cures active progenitor-based infections, but we're still unsure if it acts as a vaccine in some way, granting immunity to future infections. Only time will tell if we find some more answers to how it all works. And lastly, the third and final theory is that Spencer is actually just an evil piece of garbage, and he had ulterior motives for Grace all along despite what he said in that video interview. A lot of people mention how they were thrown off by Spencer's sudden change of character in RE9. But what if he really is the same old bastard who oversaw child experimentation and had no change of heart at all? What if Grace isn't actually a normal child and she has some sort of inherent natural immunity to viral infections? If you recall back, Spencer was obsessed with achieving immortality all the way up until 2006, when he was still doing experiments on test subjects beneath his estate. Grace is said to be born in 2001, meaning that even after the interview where he supposedly had this change of heart, he was still conducting experiments on humans to achieve immortality. You could say that this could be retconned by the time RE5 Remake releases, but by this point we're not entirely sure. People bring up that Spencer was going senile by the end of his life, and remnants of his past personality could have begun to slip through again. Is it possible that Grace truly wasn't a normal child, and she was either manufactured to have immunity to viral infections, or was actually used in Spencer's memory transfer experiments? Remember, Gideon said the notes were incomplete. He didn't say that all of it was incorrect. At the end of the day, we don't truly know, because until we get RE9 DLCs or RE10, explanations to Grace's immunity will remain what it is, a theory. But what do you guys think? Do you think Grace is just a normal child, or do you think Spencer was still using her for some darker purpose? Leave some comments down below on your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and if you want to support the channel, then consider watching this video on the entire history of Albert Wesker, and how he planned to die and destroy Umbrella in the process. But take care, and I'll see you in a new one very soon.